Okay, so hello, this is Chris. A lot of you already know me. If you've been watching me, you should know who I am. And today I'm here with Fiona, who is a local GP, and I've asked her to join me on a little Zoom consultation here or talk because she has a very interesting story about back pain, something I try and instill in all of my chiropractic patients. And here is a GP who basically has just come into me and told me what helped her back pain. I'm going, yes, I must get this actually on video. So, Fiona, hello, how are you?
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you. Hello, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Okay. So, Fiona, can you tell me a little bit about your back pain story, please?
Well, it's a pretty long story. It started when I was about 17, and I was getting mid back pain, sort of upper thoracic pain. I was put down to posture and carrying heavy bags around
So,
school.
so just for those that don't know what mid-thoracic, so you're talking about in here.
Yeah, sort of between my shoulder blades,
Yeah.
that kind of level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was put down as being from carrying heavy bags around at school, maybe not standing very well, maybe not sitting very well, and I just coped with it. Um, it it got a bit worse through medical training, and particularly I found it difficult to stand in a surgical theatre, and would just get really sore between my shoulder blades in that mid region by the end of watching an operation. I'd be really quite struggling. Got myself some insoles from school. They were quite helpful. They were like, oh yes, maybe we can do something by looking at your feet, and that did make a difference. Then ended up with really bad sciatica during my house officer years. So that's when you're first a junior doctor. And the consultant that I was working under was quite concerned, put me in an MRI machine to look at, what might be causing this back pain, worries about certain medical conditions, which thankfully turned out not to be present. And then a few years later, I think I was about 30, having just continued to struggle really, and got to a point where I was frequently waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning in so much pain that I was crying. And really stiff first thing in the morning. Nothing had come up on blood tests, nothing had come up on imaging. Nobody could really understand it. And a friend at the school gates said, I can see you're wearing these fun barefoot shoes. I think you might like this book, and handed me a book called The Primal Blueprint, which I now recommend to lots of people, although it's out of print, unfortunately. I was quite dubious. It was written by some American non-medical ultra marathon runner from California. But he mentioned quite a lot of studies. And so I went away and I critically appraised those studies in the way that we've been taught at medical school, and found that they were actually really solid evidence. So they were well-designed studies. They were quite small, but they were really well-designed, and the conclusions they made were really quite conclusions. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. And the idea was to change the diet quite dramatically. In particular, sort of leaving behind grain-based products. So for anybody who doesn't know, so that would be all your cereals, so breakfast cereals, breads, pastas, rice, barley, your pizza, cakes, biscuits, all of those things. So what our diet is basically staple in this country, at least. It was kind of to say goodbye to all of that. And found it pretty challenging, to be honest. Initially, I had a very pasta-based diet. It was easy, it was quick, it was tasty, it was relatively cheap. But I made the changes because I thought, I wonder, maybe it will help. And within 3 weeks, I had no pain and I was sleeping through the night.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So 3 weeks of challenge and then a result.
Yeah. And it's quite a number of years ago now, so I don't remember absolutely, but what I vaguely remember is that it wasn't a slow progression of getting better. I had a good 2.5 weeks of no change, and then I had a sort of quite a sudden change within the next few days. I also, and I wasn't trying to, but I also lost weight. I lost quite a significant amount of weight,
Right.
but I had more energy, and obviously I was sleeping better, so that was part of that. But I also felt like my muscle tone was better, and I just felt generally fitter. I felt more alive. I felt more alert. So I did what any good scientist should do. I stayed on that diet for a bit longer, see if it maintained, and then I stopped it and went back to my old diet. And within a month, my back pain was back, and I was back to square one.
Right.
And I felt really sluggish, and I noticed, oh, actually, I'm bloated. Oh, actually, my bowels aren't as good. Oh, actually, my hair doesn't look as nice and shiny. Oh, my skin isn't as good. Loads and loads of other things that I hadn't particularly noticed at the start. So I went back onto the diet, and I stuck with it really very strictly for a good 18 months or so.
Okay.
And then I started to occasionally put back different things. What could I cope with? What could I not cope with? I saw it as a learning journey, and I saw that, as doctors, we talk about informed decision making and informed consent. And I saw it as being able to make informed decisions. I had suddenly learned how my body reacted to foods, and I was learning more and more. Was it this food? Was it that food? Was it a combination? Was it the amount? Was it the frequency? And so I could make informed decisions. And for me, I realized that I unfortunately can't eat oats, and I still don't eat oats. And I find that quite challenging. I love porridge. I love flapjack. So, but it's not worth it. So there are other things that are sometimes worth it, like, a croissant on a Saturday morning is worth it. I might feel a little bit bloated for a couple of hours after. Oh, well. Whereas a bowl of porridge, however much I enjoy it, for 24, 36 hours, I've then got significant back pain and can't actually bend down and touch my toes, and can't necessarily, on a bad day, wouldn't then be able to even do my shoelaces up. It's not worth it.
Right.
So, that's quite a dramatic effect, and most people probably don't have that level of intolerance, I suppose it is really. But certainly cutting out grains just made such a huge difference that most of the time I've stuck with that now for about 12 years.
Okay, excellent. And you mentioned that you've just been on holiday and you've eaten a few more grains and you feel a bit stiffer.
Yeah, been to France.
Yes.
Been to France. What can one do? Been to France, stayed with the in-laws, and croissant and pain au chocolat every day for breakfast, baguette for lunch, a bit more baguette for dinner. Actually, I've tolerated it really well, and certainly the French bread and grain is not as significantly bad as the English, and I've learned quite a lot about this. So this is partly to do with the way that, the actual specific grain crops that they grow. So they grow a much more old-fashioned wheat than we do. It's less intensively grown. It has probably less gluten and less phytans and glycans and such like in it. It's also the fact that even their rapid rise dough will have been risen for 36 hours, whereas most of our sourdough will only have been risen for 24 hours. So actually, it's that slow fermentation process means that their bread is very different from ours. Also, their bread, will only ever have flour, yeast, water, salt, maybe a little bit of butter in it. Whereas our bread, so depends what you buy, but even if you buy sort of really good bread, it might have 2 or 3 other ingredients. And if you buy what my kids term plastic bread, bread in a named kit, it's going to have a whole list of ingredients, most of which are things that you wouldn't find in your chemistry lab, let alone your kitchen cupboard. So
excellent. So
but but yeah, so I have tolerated better. But saying that, I have given myself a minor injury from a bit of twisting and such like, and I am reacting to that a lot more than I would expect to. And that I think is from the fact that I have had more grains in the last week or so.
I see.
So,
I see. So when you originally went on the sort of more paleo plan, avoiding the grains, not only did you have decreased pain, you found that you got rid of unwanted fat and had more muscle tone, and
I did, yeah,
everything
absolutely.
worked better. Your skin,
Yeah,
your hair, more energy.
absolutely. And I should probably be it's probably not actually very accurate nowadays, because there is sort of some quite good stuff out there about paleo diets. It's probably not very accurate to call what I did a fully paleo diet. It was more, well, I don't think there is a term really, but it's a sort of primal diet is what the guy in the book called it. So paleo, but plus also still including dairy if you wanted to, and still including legumes. So that's like your lentils and beans and pulses and things. So I cut them down, I think, just from the fact that if you're eating meat and fish and eggs and nuts and lots of vegetables, they kind of don't feature so much. But yeah, I did still eat them.
Okay. And is there any general advice that you'd give somebody who has got back pain or health issues? And
absolutely try diet.
Yes.
You know, and I would say start with a paleo diet or even a paleo keto diet, or this more primal diet that some people find a lot more tolerable. But absolutely start by cutting out the grain and see if it makes a difference. Yes, it was a bit challenging, but actually once you've got your head around it, could not believe the amount of things. I'm saying that, obviously, you know, if you have not seen a health professional, just need to cover myself here as a GP. If you have not seen a health professional about your back pain and it is getting worse, or it has any sort of challenging symptoms or things that are a bit unusual, then please do go and see a health professional. But rather than, you know, if you're told everything's fine and you just need to take some cocodamol or ibuprofen or whatever, I would say we'll start with diet first. So.
Thank you. And I believe you have a website, do you, at the moment, where people can reach out to you? Yeah,
I do. So it's hopeforhealth.com. There are hyphens between the two, between the words. Yeah, so I'm trying to practice and help people, empower people to make these sorts of changes. If it's back pain, if it's energy levels, if it's sort of vagal chronic disease kind of issues, just to empower people to kind of start making their own changes that might then help them and reduce tablet burdens and such like, alongside whatever they're doing with the doctor.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Fiona. I shall be sending this out to my own patients to help encourage them to make some dietary changes, because a lot of people don't believe that dietary changes can help their physical pains. So thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. And now stop recording.